I never thought my long-awaited vacation would begin with such drama, but I guess that's what happens when you cross paths with someone I now refer to as Plain Karen. After months of 60-hour work weeks, closing the biggest deal of my career, I decided to treat myself to a first-class experience for my trip to Hawaii. Not just any first-class seat. I splurged and purchased the entire front row. All 3 seats. Just for me. Excessive? Perhaps. But after the year I'd had, I needed space to decompress without anyone invading my personal bubble. I boarded early, as first-class passengers do, and settled into the window seat of my purchased row. The flight attendant, Melissa, greeted me warmly, already aware of my special arrangement. "Mr. Chun, we've noted that you've purchased all 3 seats in this row. Would you like a pre-flight beverage?" I gratefully accepted a sparkling water and relaxed into the plush seat, already feeling the stress melting away. The cabin was peaceful, with just a few other passengers quietly arranging their belongings in the first-class section. I closed my eyes, enjoying the rare moment of tranquility before the other passengers would board. That serenity was shattered when I heard her voice, loud, demanding, and dripping with entitlement. "Excuse me, I believe you're in my seat." I opened my eyes to see a woman in her 40s, designer handbag dangling from her wrist, manicured finger pointing at a boarding pass. Her hair was styled in that specific way that screams, "I regularly terrorize retail workers," and her expression suggested she was already prepared for a fight. Behind her, a line of passengers was forming, trying to make their way to the economy section. "I'm sorry, but I think there's been some mistake," I replied calmly. "I purchased this entire row." I gestured to all 3 seats. The woman, who I would later dub Plain Karen, let out an exaggerated sigh that seemed to say, "I don't have time for this nonsense." "That's impossible," she said with absolute certainty. "The airline would never allow someone to buy multiple seats like that. You must be confused." She thrust her boarding pass toward my face. "See? Seat 1A. That's this seat. Your seat must be somewhere else." I noticed her boarding pass actually read seat 7A, which wasn't even in first class, but I didn't immediately point this out. I maintained my composure and showed her my 3 boarding passes. "As you can see, I have tickets for seats 1A, 1B, and 1C. I specifically purchased the entire row." Karen's eyes narrowed as she examined my boarding passes, looking for any flaw she could exploit. Finding none, she changed tactics. "Well, that's just ridiculous and selfish," she declared loudly, clearly hoping to gain support from nearby passengers. "No one needs 3 seats. I have a bad back, and I need to sit in first class. You should let me have this seat." By now, the line behind her was growing, and people were becoming visibly annoyed at the delay. The flight attendant, Melissa, noticed the commotion and approached us. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, her professional tone masking what I suspected was weariness at dealing with yet another entitled passenger. Before I could respond, Karen jumped in. "This man is claiming he bought all 3 seats in this row, which is obviously not allowed. My ticket says I'm supposed to be in seat 1A, and I need to sit here because of my medical condition." She emphasized medical condition, as if it were a magic phrase that would instantly grant her whatever she wanted. Melissa glanced at Karen's boarding pass and then at mine. "Ma'am, your boarding pass is for seat 7A, which is in premium economy, not first class. And yes, Mr. Chin has indeed purchased all 3 seats in this row, which is absolutely allowed by our airline policy." Karen's face flushed red, but rather than accept defeat, she doubled down. "That's impossible. There must be a mistake with your system. I specifically requested a first-class seat when I booked." "Check again," she demanded. The passengers behind her were now openly grumbling, and one called out, "Lady, just go to your assigned seat so we can all board." Karen shot a venomous glare over her shoulder before turning back to Melissa. "I want to speak to the captain," Karen declared, as if the captain of a commercial airline would interrupt pre-flight preparations to adjudicate a seating dispute. Melissa's professional smile remained fixed, but I could see the strain around her eyes. "The captain is currently preparing for our flight, ma'am. I'm the lead flight attendant, and I can assure you that your assigned seat is 7A. If you'd like to discuss upgrading to first class, we can check availability after everyone is boarded. But for now, I need to ask you to proceed to your assigned seat so others can board. Karen's nostrils flared as she inhaled sharply. Do you know who I am? She asked, her voice dropping to what she probably thought was an intimidating tone. I'm on the board of directors for Lux Hospitality Group. We partner with your airline for our corporate travel. I could have a word with your CEO about how I'm being treated right now. I had to suppress an eye roll. The name dropping and threats were so predictable. Melissa remained unflappable. I understand you're frustrated, ma'am, but company policy applies to everyone, regardless of their status. Now, I need to insist that you move to your assigned seat or step off the aircraft to discuss this matter with the gate agent, which would likely result in you missing this flight. The line of passengers behind Karen had grown longer, and people were now openly expressing their frustration. Someone called out, "Just go to your seat already." Karen seemed to realize she was fighting a losing battle, at least for the moment. With a dramatic huff, she turned to me. "This isn't over," she said, attempting to sound menacing. Then she stormed off toward premium economy, shoving her designer bag against the shoulders of seated passengers as she went. I exchanged a knowing look with Melissa, who subtly rolled her eyes before continuing to assist other boarding passengers. I thought that would be the end of it, but Karen was just getting started. About 15 minutes after takeoff, as the flight attendants began preparing the first beverage service, I spotted her marching up the aisle from premium economy. She stopped right beside my row, where I was comfortably stretched across my 3 seats, laptop open on the middle seat tray table. "Since you're clearly not using all these seats," she said with artificial sweetness, "I'll just take one of them. My seat neighbor in premium economy has a crying baby, and I simply can't concentrate on my important work." Without waiting for a response, she started to sit down in the aisle seat of my row. I quickly pressed the flight attendant call button. "Excuse me," I said firmly. "These seats are all purchased by me. You can't just take one because you want to." Karen ignored me and began pulling items from her bag, arranging them on the seat tray as if she owned it. Melissa arrived moments later, her expression changing from helpful to concerned when she saw what was happening. "Ma'am, you need to return to your assigned seat," Melissa stated. "As we discussed during boarding, Mr. Chun has purchased all 3 seats in this row." Karen looked up with an expression of practiced innocence. "Oh, but he's only using 1 seat. It's wasteful, really, and there's a screaming baby next to my seat. Surely you can understand how difficult that is for me." Melissa stood her ground. Whether Mr. Chun is physically occupying all 3 seats or not is irrelevant. He paid for them, and they're his for the duration of this flight. Please return to your assigned seat immediately. Karen's facade of pleasantness disappeared in an instant. "I want your employee number and the name of your supervisor," she snapped. "This is outrageous treatment. I've never been so disrespected in all my years of flying." By this point, several passengers were watching the scene unfold with a mixture of annoyance and morbid fascination. Karen seemed to notice the audience and raised her voice even more. "Everyone here should know how this airline treats its loyal customers. I spend thousands on flights every year, and this is the thanks I get." Melissa's patience was clearly wearing thin, but her professionalism never wavered. "Ma'am, I need you to lower your voice and return to your seat. If you continue to disrupt the cabin, I'll have to involve the captain, which could result in us diverting the flight." The mention of potential diversion seemed to give Karen pause. Getting a flight diverted would be a much bigger scene than she bargained for, and even she seemed to recognize that might not end well for her. Grudgingly, she gathered her belongings. As she stood up, she leaned toward me and hissed, "You think you're so special with your 3 seats. I'm going to make sure you regret this." The threat was so melodramatic that I almost laughed, but I kept my expression neutral as she stomped back to premium economy. The next hour of the flight was peaceful. I enjoyed my first-class meal, got some work done on my laptop, and even dozed off for a bit. I was jolted awake by the sound of liquid splashing and felt something cold seeping through my shirt. I opened my eyes to find Karen standing over me, an apologetic expression on her face that didn't match the satisfied gleam in her eyes. She had accidentally spilled her entire glass of red wine on me and my laptop. "Oh my goodness, I'm so clumsy," she said loudly, not sounding sorry at all. "I was just trying to get to the lavatory and trip." My white shirt was now stained burgundy, and my laptop keyboard was drenched. I quickly lifted my computer, turning it upside down to let the liquid drain away from the sensitive electronics, but the damage was likely already done. This laptop contained all my work files, including the contracts for the deal I just closed. "What are you doing up here again?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite my rising anger. "The premium economy lavatories are in the other direction." Karen shrugged with exaggerated innocence. "I prefer the first-class ones. They're cleaner." Before I could respond, Melissa and another flight attendant arrived, quickly assessing the situation. "Sir, let me help you with that," the second attendant said, offering a handful of napkins. Melissa turned to Karen, her professional demeanor finally showing cracks of genuine anger. "Ma'am, this is the third time you've left your assigned seat and caused a disruption. I need you to return to your seat immediately. I'll be documenting this incident, and the captain will be notified." Karen's face contorted with rage. "Are you threatening me? I told you. I'm on the board of Lux Hospitality Group. One call from me, and your career is over." She jabbed a finger toward Melissa's name tag. "I'm memorizing your name, Melissa. You'll be hearing from our legal team about how you've humiliated me on this flight." Melissa stood her ground. "Ma'am, I have witnesses who saw you deliberately spill wine on another passenger and his property. That could potentially be classified as assault and destruction of property. Now, please return to your seat, or I will have to take more serious measures." Several passengers around us murmured in agreement, a few even taking out their phones to record the scene. Karen seemed to suddenly realize that she was not garnering the sympathy she expected. A man in a business suit from across the aisle spoke up. "I saw the whole thing. She didn't trip. She deliberately poured that wine." An older woman nodded. "I saw it too. She's been targeting this young man the entire flight." Karen's face paled slightly as she realized the narrative wasn't going her way. The second flight attendant returned with the air marshal, who had been seated toward the back of the plane. He was a serious-looking man in plain clothes who quietly took Karen aside. I couldn't hear their conversation, but Karen's body language shifted from aggressive to defensive. Eventually, she was escorted back to her seat, where the air marshal sat next to her for the remainder of the flight. Melissa approached me with a first-class amenity kit. "I'm so sorry about your shirt and laptop, sir. We'll provide you with a voucher for cleaning costs and any potential damage to your computer. Would you like to file a formal complaint? The captain has already reported the incident, and there will be police meeting us at the gate in Honolulu." I considered this for a moment. While I was angry about my laptop and ruined shirt, I also didn't want to spend my vacation dealing with police reports and legal issues. But then I remembered the crucial files on my laptop and Karen's smug expression as she poured wine on me. Yes, I decided. I'd like to file a complaint. That laptop contains important work files that might be permanently damaged. When we landed in Honolulu, passengers were asked to remain seated while police officers boarded the plane. They spoke briefly with the flight crew before approaching Karen, who immediately began protesting loudly. "This is harassment. I'm a victim here. That man hoarded 3 seats while I was crammed in with screaming children." The officers remained professional but firm as they escorted her off the plane. The rest of us were allowed to disembark afterward. In the terminal, I gave my statement to another officer, showing him my drenched laptop and stained shirt. Several passengers voluntarily came forward to corroborate my account, including the businessman across the aisle who had recorded part of the incident on his phone. He gladly shared the video with the police and offered to email it to me as well. "You might want this for your insurance claim," he said with a knowing look, "or whatever else comes next." I thanked him and exchanged contact information, sensing that this ordeal wasn't over yet. I spent the first day of my vacation filing a police report, contacting my company's IT department about the laptop, and trying to salvage what I could from the machine. Thankfully, most of my files were backed up to the cloud, but the laptop itself, a top-of-the-line model provided by my company, was ruined. The next morning, I received a call from an airline representative offering compensation for the incident and asking if there was anything else they could do to improve my experience. "Actually," I said, getting an idea, Could you tell me the name of the company Karen claimed to be affiliated with? Lux Hospitality Group, I believe. The representative confirmed the name after checking the incident report. After we ended the call, I did some research on my phone. Lux Hospitality Group was indeed a real company, a chain of luxury hotels and resorts, including one on the very island where I was staying. And yes, there was a board member matching Karen's description, Karen Westfield, Senior Vice President of Customer Experience. The irony was almost too perfect. I was contemplating my next move when my phone rang again. It was the airline's legal department, informing me that Karen had filed a complaint against me and the airline, claiming harassment and discrimination. They asked if I would be willing to provide a statement and share any evidence I had of the incident. Absolutely, I replied, and I think I have something else that might interest you. Over the next 2 days, between actually trying to enjoy some of my vacation, I worked with the airline's legal team and provided them with the contact information for other passengers who had witnessed Karen's behavior. I also shared what I had learned about her position at Lux Hospitality Group, suggesting that her conduct on the flight hardly reflected well on a company supposedly dedicated to customer experience. By the 3rd day of my vacation, news of the incident had somehow leaked to social media. Someone had posted the video of Karen pouring wine on me, and it was going viral. The hashtag Plain Karen was trending, with people sharing their own stories of entitled behavior on flights. I tried to distance myself from the online frenzy, but it was hard to ignore when several news outlets reached out for comments. On day 4, I received an unexpected email from the CEO of Lux Hospitality Group. The subject line read, "Sincere apologies and request for meeting." The email expressed profound regret for the inexcusable behavior of one of our executives and asked if I would be willing to meet in person during my stay. Intrigued, I agreed to meet the following day at my hotel. The CEO, a distinguished woman named Elaine Harrison, met me in the hotel's executive lounge. She was accompanied by their general counsel. "Mr. Chun," she began after introductions, "I want to personally apologize for what you experienced. Karen Westfield's actions go against everything our company stands for, and I assure you that we're taking this matter extremely seriously." She explained that Karen had been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. "The board will be meeting next week to discuss her future with the company," Elaine said gravely. "In the meantime, we'd like to offer you compensation for your damaged property and the disruption to your vacation." She slid a folder across the table. Inside was a formal letter of apology and an offer that made my eyebrows raise. Full reimbursement for my laptop, first-class flights, and a complimentary 1-week stay at any of their properties worldwide. Additionally, Elaine continued, "We'd like to offer you a year of platinum elite status in our loyalty program." She paused, her expression becoming more serious. "However, we do have one request. Our legal team would prefer to resolve this matter privately, without further media attention. We're prepared to offer an additional compensation package if you'd be willing to sign a confidentiality agreement." I considered the offer carefully. While generous, it felt somewhat like a bribe to keep quiet about executive misbehavior. "I appreciate your offer," I replied, "but I've already provided statements to the airline and police. I can't retract those." Elaine nodded understanding. "Of course, we're not asking you to change any official statements. We're simply hoping to avoid further public discussion of the matter. Karen's actions were her own, not representative of our company values. After some negotiation, we reached an agreement. I would not actively seek media attention regarding the incident, and they would not only compensate me for damages, but also implement a company-wide customer service training program named, with delicious irony, the First Class Experience Initiative. I suggested that the program emphasize treating all customers with respect, regardless of their status or how many seats they purchase. 3 weeks after returning from vacation, I received an email from Elaine with a press release attached. The board had voted to remove Karen Westfield from her position. The press release cited conduct unbecoming of an executive and inconsistent with company values as the reason for her departure. There was no direct mention of the plane incident, but the timing made the connection obvious to anyone familiar with the story. Later that same day, I received a notification from the airline that the case had been resolved. Karen had been placed on a no-fly list for a year and had agreed to pay for damages to my property as part of a settlement to avoid civil litigation. I also learned through a mutual connection that the incident had made Karen something of a pariah in the luxury hospitality industry, with several job opportunities mysteriously disappearing once potential employers learned of the viral video. Sometimes I wonder if buying that entire first-class row was excessive. But when I remember Karen's face as she realized her actions had real consequences, as the police escorted her from the plane, as her professional reputation crumbled, as her entitled worldview collided with reality, I think it might have been the best money I ever spent. Not because I needed 3 seats, but because it created the perfect stage for karma to play out in spectacular fashion. And if there's one thing I learned from this experience, it's that karma, much like me on that flight to Hawaii, travels first class.